So there was this kid, and he did not speak fluently until he was 5 years old. His teachers thought he was lazy and he wouldn't amount to much. He got teased by the other kids. But you want to know who this kid is? Einstein. Another example is somebody that did very poorly in school and failed several exams. And that was Winston Churchill, former UK Prime Minister. Or another person struggled with dyslexia and dropped out of school at age 16. Nobody thought he would amount to much, but guess what? That's Richard Branson, entrepreneur of the Virgin Group. So you can see all these people that people thought weren't smart were very intelligent. And the last episode we talked about how to become better friends with ourselves. This one we're talking about the truth about you and me. And the truth is we're all smart. So let's get started. So first of all, go ahead and go to my website at livebrighter.info, and there's a lot of great free downloads, affirmations, and that will actually apply to what we're talking about today. So we are all enough, we are all lovable, we are all worthy. And those, it's so interesting. I see my little granddaughter, Quinley, and she's just 14 months old and sporting her little cute little blue jeans. And there's nothing in her that thinks I'm not enough, I'm not lovable, I'm not worthy. I've got a picture of her and she's got like chocolate all around her mouth and her cute little blue jeans on, and she just doesn't have a care in the world. And that's just one example of how we knew and we were born to be enough, lovable, worthy. And because of my belief in God, in Christianity, I really use that to know my worthiness and enoughness, because God views us as all uniquely beautiful, put here on purpose. We all have a part of God in us because we were made in His image, and we were here for a time and a place and a purpose. And I talk a lot about that in previous episodes, so I'm not going to focus on that as much. But I will say again, we were born that way. We were born enough, lovable, and worthy. And God wants a deeper relationship with us in a long term. And He thought we were more than enough, that He actually sent Himself down as Christ to connect at a deeper relationship and a long-term relationship in heaven. And that's just one example of our more than enoughness. Another example in the Bible, it talks about how, God is like the good shepherd, and He will leave His 99 sheep to go after the one. In other words, each of us individually matter to Him and are very valuable. And that's so important to embrace and to experience and to know. Another verse that I like it's Psalms 147:11, and it says, "The Lord delights in those that fear Him." And I love that. I always get kind of wigged out with the word fear because it's not how we as Americans traditionally think of fear, which is fight, flight, freeze. Fear, how it's represented, is like respect and awe, things like that, because it was never meant to push us away. It was always meant to bring us closer. So it's definitely not in line with our word fear, but He delights in those. And we all, we see Him in the world and the world around us, and it's easy to understand that He's there and He cares about us and that He loves us. Whether we are Christians or not, we can see God and universe and how that all looks and learn a lot from that and let it speak to all of us, because we're all hearing from God, whoever we are. Sometimes we're not listening or aware, but He's all talking to all of us. But we're going to transition to that we're all also smart and creative. So we're going to start with smart. It's kind of tragic in a lot of ways that our school system is set up that you either pass or you get straight A's and you're smart, quote unquote, or you don't and then you're dumb. And that is so not true about smart. Just like the example of Winston Churchill and of Einstein and Richard Branson, they all did horrible in school and would have been labeled differently. And that's why it's so important to understand what smart really means, because there's a lot of different types of smart. So for example, some people are word smart. I'm always amazed at my husband who, he could do so well in just knowing different words and knowing the definitions and words I've never even heard of. He'd be great at Scrabble, and I refuse to play Scrabble with him because word smart is definitely not my strength, and maybe I should play because that could improve it. But there's word smart. There's also number smart. But there's a lot of things that don't fit within, like, quote unquote, the school system. For example, there's picture smart, there's spatial intelligence, people that can visualize objects in space. And that's just another reminder of how sucky I am at that. When I try to pack up my car and put everything in its space, I definitely struggle with that spatial smartness. Another one is like a body smart, like being able to coordinate and movements and handle objects skillfully. Then there's the music smart, and that's amazing. There's also a people smart, and this is something that I think is super important as we are becoming into an age where emotional intelligence and interpersonal relationships are so important and valuable, and having this skill. So people smart, being able to understand and empathize and having more of a social awareness than other people tend to have. Another one is just like a interpersonal intelligence, a self-smart. And those are the ones that can get to a deeper understanding with themselves, emotions, strengths, and stuff like that, which I'm probably more in line with that. Whereas other people don't think deeply about that or whatever. And so they can borrow from my smartness in that area, and I'll borrow from their smartness in other areas because I've got lots of areas I'm not smart with. And then there's also the nature smart, people that can just identify patterns and they can understand nature. So that's another area of smartness. Another one is big picture smart. And that's the ability to like see big pictures, to question and ponder deeper things, or to be able to see things from a bigger picture. And a lot of those things we wouldn't associate with smartness, but they all are smart, and we are all smart, and we are all some of those, and we're all not all of them. And that's just how we're made. And if anyone's ever told you you're not smart, or if you've ever embraced that idea, question it, because you are smart, and that is a fact. Are you feeling stuck in with love, wealth, or peace? Well, you're not alone. Often it's a subconscious belief holding you back. That's why I combined life coaching and hypnotherapy together, so you can break through what's been keeping you stuck. Life coaching helps you shift your mindset, while hypnotherapy works deep within to reprogram limiting beliefs and memories. It's fast, it's effective, typically one session of each, and I have a few openings left. Are you ready for a change? Visit livebrighter.info and book your free consultation and see if this approach is right for you. See you then. We're also creative. And I think this is an interesting thing, because just like some people can think that they're not smart, some people think that they're not creative, but we're actually all smart and we're all creative. And I think, unfortunately, creativity we associate with artists, but there's, again, a vast variety of ways to be creative. Obviously, the artistic creativity and being able to be artistically creative. And then there's intellectual creativity. That's like using ideas and exploring complex thoughts, and they can be creative on an intellectual level. There's also practical creativity, just solving everyday problems, easy, clever, and resourceful approaches, being able to make things work, put things together. There's also interpersonal and social creativity, being able to connect well with others and communicate and create group dynamics. And there's interpersonal creativity. And then there's innovative creativity, entrepreneurship. That's like turning ideas into ventures and being able to think outside the box. And then there's a creativity emotionally, being able to express and understand things on an emotional level and some emotional intelligence. And then there's also like physical creativity, using the body to express creatively. That's like yoga and dance and PT, physical therapy. There's scientific creativity. That's approaching technology changes and thinking originally about them and scientifically. There's spiritual creativity, creating meaning and connection through just thinking through and experimenting. So there's just so many ways that we're creative. So it's not just the art and being artistic. For example, I have 3 daughters and a son, and my 3 daughters are all very pretty artistically creative, and their mom, when I go to draw, it's not that pretty. So, but they've kind of given me a little bit of a hard time. I tend to not be creative in being able to put it onto paper, but I have different creativities in other ways. For example, imagination is one of my creativities, and being able to imagine things that other people that wouldn't be able to, that isn't natural to maybe other people. For example, I published a couple books. I'm one of the people, I didn't publish them. I'm one of the people that helped with a couple books with Mr. Hibb. And that's like it's basically kind of a grasshopper that helps explain scientific things. And even though I'm part of the creative pictures, I actually never drew a single picture. I was the one that would take the information and think of a practical way to have Mr. Hibb explaining these scientific ideas so that it could be a kid's book and entertaining to adults too. And so that was my part of it. So it's Mr. Hibb, geology with Mr. Hibb, and then we had another Mr. Hibb book. And same with when I taught chemistry, like, teaching chemistry can be really abstract and up there, but for me, like, until we bring it down and understanding the practical application, for me, that's where things have its meaning, in the everyday practical application. So I spent a lot more time talking about the practical when I was a chemistry teacher than I did getting so into just the mathematical and all of that. I tried to bring it to a practical level. I think about like Brian Buffini. He's a great coach, and he specializes in real estate. His teacher said he wasn't creative at all, and because he couldn't color in the lines. But yet he's creatively built this huge, the largest coaching business in the US, and is very creative in the way he's done that. And so it's really important not to identify that we're not creative or not smart, because we are creative and we are smart. So we all have something to add to the world. You have something to add to the world. So where do we figure out how we're creative and how we're smart? Well, a lot of times we take our strengths for granted, and so we can be unaware of that. So sometimes people can say, oh, wow, that was really creative or that was really smart, but we wouldn't identify it at that. So we can listen to what other people say to give us more of an awareness of our strengths when it comes to creativity and being smart. Also, we can think about what lights us up, because a lot of times, our gifts or our strengths are in something that really lights us up. Also, the third thing is that it could be something that we were teased about, like given a hard time because we didn't fit in the box of whatever was going on. A lot of times those are our creativities, those are our smarts, but it didn't fit in the box, so maybe we got teased about it. So that could be a way to figure out some of your giftings as far as creative and being smart. So I want you to just take a deep breath in, belly breath in, and breathe out slowly. And one more belly breath in and breathe out slowly. And I just want you to repeat after me in your mind or out loud. I am loved. I am more than enough. I am worthy. I am smart and I am creative. And I cut off any power or words or thoughts that is contrary to these truths. I acknowledge that these truths, and I try to grow into them 1% at a time. I walk in these truths that I'm more than enough, that I'm lovable, that I'm worthy, that I'm creative, and that I'm smart. And I find expressions of them. So this is the truth about you, and this is my belief in you. So you can download and listen to this regularly to just grill it into your heart and mind. You can download the affirmations on my website, livebrighter.info. You can create your own affirmations to remind you of this. And as always, grow 1% at a time. Make it a great day. Stay tuned for our next episode.